Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Southern Reads podcast, the show where I talk about any books and only books and everything book related. And today I am joined by Mr. AJ Tyler. AJ is a former CPA and attorney, former turnaround expert and restaurateur, and now a fiction author and speaker. He has been thrilling his readers with murder mysteries and loves entertaining his audiences with complex plot twists and have been culled from his years as a CPA and attorney. Having undertaken hundreds of business transactions as a lead negotiator, he has become adept at reading people. He brings that skill to crafting characters for his books and has a storytelling style that keeps his audience interested. So he's here today to share a little bit more about his writing career and writing journey, and I'm really excited to dive on in and learn more of his story. So AJ, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come on the podcast today. I'm really looking forward to it. Welcome to Southern Reads.
Noah, thank you so much for having me, and to your audience, thank you for spending time to listen to me. Um, I'll just take a moment and elaborate on the background. I had a father who was a CPA who wanted me to become an accountant, wanted me to go to law school, and I did. But my love for writing actually began when I was 16 years old. I had read Dalton Trumbo's book, Johnny Got His Gun. For those that haven't read any of Trumbo, he was a blacklisted writer during the McCarthy era, wrote some phenomenal books and some Academy Award winning movie scripts as well. That book was so powerful to me, and the words were so powerful, it made me want to write, but it also made me want to read. I also had a mother who loved reading, and as a result, I would often go to the bookstore with her and find books, and she encouraged that. Um, I always had this desire in the back of my head as part of my life's bucket list: write a novel. But what happened was life got in the way, work, family, all the things that go on with that. And about 10 years ago, I started working on a novel. It was the first of five that I was working on. And during the pandemic, I picked it up after having not touched it for a couple of years. Everything was shut down. And the only thing I could do was sit in front of a computer or a pad of paper and write. And I indulged my imagination the same way that I indulged my imagination and creativity when I was structuring a transaction to buy a business, excuse me, helping a client with a complicated tax matter. Only this was the ability to create something from nothing except my own mind, not the tax law, not the needs of either party in the transaction. So for me, this was the ultimate ability to be creative. It took me about a year and a half to finish Death Insured, which is my first novel. And then once it was done, I put it down again. I would proofread it, I would change it, I would edit it. In 2024, when the second of my parents, my mother, passed away, I decided it was time to get the book published. And I started looking around for publishers. Eventually, I found a hybrid publisher and put the book out at the end of 24, beginning of 25, and since then have been working on three more manuscripts, two more in the series with our protagonists from Death Insured, Alan Miller and Lara Shapiro, and two in completely different genre, one in a different genre, one in the same genre, but a different protagonist. So, and I guess the one thing that I would say that has been so much fun is that whilst the characters in the book, in all the books, are based to a degree on people I know or I've met, it's the ability to extract people's character traits or find them wherever I go and then apply them to the plot and make the twists and turns happen, if you will.
So when you were crafting this book and when you started your writing journey, did you have a general idea of what genre that you really wanted to focus on?
I did. I've read I did this one time and I calculated because I used to have a home when I lived up north with a very large library, and every book on the shelf there I had read, and it was almost 3,500 books. And since then, I've read a lot more. But the majority of those books were mysteries, thrillers. Lawrence Sanders, Daniel Silva, David Baldacci, Preston and Childs, um, Gabe, Harlan Coben. The writers that I loved all had different styles, but they all had one common theme. They had the ability to keep you on the edge of your seat and guessing what would come next. I love Coben because there's a little bit of humor injected into his mystery. So I tried to put a little bit of that into my book. I love Silva and I love Greg Isles because it's thorough and detailed. And I like to do that as I'm building the character's backstory. Like I said, it's a little bit of everyone, but it was always mysteries and thrillers, albeit there's a book I'm working on called Please Don't, it's about dating as you get older, and you're single. It's called Please Don't Call Me a Nice Guy. I Was Hoping to Date You. And it's the story of a nice guy who loses his wife and then subsequently is out in the dating world in his late 40s and early 50s, learning all over again about being a nice guy in the dating world. It's told very tongue in cheek through dating experiences, both my own and those that people have shared with me. But very humorously, not negatively, like, oh, it was a bad date, and they go home and complain to their friends. It's finding the humor in each thing as this guy goes through the world looking for his soulmate. So again, it's I find something I love or a topic I love, I will throw myself into it. So
So when you were writing Death Insured, tell me how you wanted to go about writing the book and what was your writing process like?
okay. Well, it began with I had done research many years ago when I was still practicing for a client on the concept of viaticals. Viaticals are a financial product where people will sell their life insurance policy for the discounted present value based on their age, their health, and their life expectancy. Oftentimes, they do this because they have health issues and they need money. Basically, the companies that are buying these policies are gambling. They're making a bet on when you're going to die because what they get is not their money back. They get the face value of the policy. So if it's $1 million policy and they buy it for 100,000, they're banking you're going to die sooner rather than later to get their $1 million. Part of the process for me was okay, that's an idea that's a little ghoulish to me, but at the same time is rife with opportunities to commit a murder. And from that came the base concept for it. I added to it, then I started layering on other elements of the story, the backstories of the participants, both the protagonist and the antagonist, their history, the good and the bad. So even the bad guy was bad for a reason. And you got to learn a little bit about his or her history and why. Then, after I did that and I had the characters in my mind or on paper, I started taking out pads of paper. And everywhere I went, I'd have a pad of paper and a pen. And when an idea for a chapter came to me, I'd just start writing furiously. Then, when I would transcribe it, I would edit it and figure out where it fit in the book because it wasn't always I went from chapter 8 to chapter 9. Sometimes I went from chapter 8 and I had an idea for chapter 22 and I had to write everything in between. The hardest part of the process for me was the ending. I wrote the book. I gave a draft to it to a friend of mine who was a SWAT officer in New York City. He read it and he said, I love the book. I hate the ending. It's a little too pat and a little too easy. And that's not the way crime works. So I went in and I rewrote it. I gave it to him and he liked the new ending better. Um, but once I get to a certain point, I need to figure out how the book's going to end so I can write back to the middle.
So going through when it came to publishing and promotion, how did you go about promoting? Did you want to kind of work through a publishing company? Did you want to become a self-publisher? Tell me how it when it came to finally getting the book out, how did you go about doing that?
Okay, so I started by taking the manuscript and I submitted it to a few literary agents and a few open submissions to mainstream publishers. But I also came to understand that the mainstream publishers, when they open up submissions, are probably getting 1,000 books submitted to them, and maybe 50 of them are good. And it's all about the query letter that you submit and what you say and do. That made it very difficult because I didn't know, and I'm still not 100% sure how to catch someone's eye. Everyone that reads the book loves the book. The most common comment I get is, I couldn't put the book down once I started. But getting somebody to do that is very hard. So I decided I would go about the process of looking for either self publishing or hybrid publishing. I found a hybrid publisher that I liked working with. They did a little bit of marketing, but most of it became my job. Facebook page, Instagram, um, I've set up a TikTok page now, although I haven't posted to it yet because I'm still thinking about what I want to post and the reels I want to post. I do. I I communicate with other authors looking for ideas. I've done some outside reviews. I've applied for a couple of book awards and waiting to hear about those because that gives it a little more gravitas. Because most of those awards are given based on performance, not based on fee, because everybody pays the same fee. So I'm hopeful that they're coming through in the next few months. I'm hoping at least one of them happens because it makes life a little easier to say you are an X book award or a Y book award winner. Beyond that, it's podcasting. I've applied and gone on probably 25 or 30 podcasts since the book came out. Um, Most of them are writing related. Some are more intrigued by my background as a CPA and attorney than by the writing itself, but it's the opportunity to tell the story. And if the story is compelling, people always, and maybe the easiest part of marketing the book is the one that I do the most. I am an avid foodie, and I'll often go to dinner at restaurants I like or know. I'll sit at the bar, talk to the bartenders, talk to the people around me. And invariably, if I do, I'll sell one or two books. By the end of the night, somebody wants the link. They buy the book, they take my number, and then I hear back from them. Oh my God, this was really good. I have one place in particular. Every single time I go there for dinner, I go on a Friday night. I sell 3 or 4 books because the crowd there is a reader crowd. Part of it is also knowing who to target your book to. Readers have the largest portion of readers right now are women between the ages of 43 and 68. There are elements they look for in every book: a little excitement, a little romance, a little love, a little bit of sex, not pornography, but eroticism as part of the story, if it fits in the story, and something that keeps them engaged. Strong characters that they can relate to. So,
Through your whole writing journey, who have been some of your biggest inspirations and authors that really inspired you?
let's see. Wow. Well, as I said, the adult in Trumbo, maybe more other than what Johnny got his gun because of his actual story. A guy who's blacklisted, can't write, but all he wants to do is write. Ends up ghostwriting 2 different Academy Award winning scripts. Um, because he couldn't write under his own name. Lawrence Sanders was probably the first great mystery writer I read, who wrote The First Deadly Sin, The Second Deadly Sin, and so on. I loved his character that he created in that book, his detective. Um, uh, Harlan Coben, because his characters are so unique and quirky in some ways. Um, excuse me, Greg Isles for the depth of his writing. His main protagonist is somebody that I relate to because he was a lawyer and he was a mayor and he's just did a lot of unique things. Uh, Daniel Silva wrote wrote the Gabriel Alon spy books, and Daniel's books were just so inspiring because he was able to weave one of my favorite hobbies, art, into his thriller spy novels. Not an easy thing to do, but he was able to do it. Um, God, there's so many. Preston and Childs, because their antagonist was a very interesting guy. It just, it just, it's amazing when I read people's work. Great writers. I am awed by the talent and the creativity, something that I don't think people truly understand. I tell people that I was out Friday night and ran into a friend I knew and her new boyfriend, and he said to me, "I hear you're a writer. I have an idea for a murder mystery." And I said, "Great." And he started telling me, and I said to him, let me tell you something. Here's how you begin. Take a pad of paper, write your idea down on paper, start to flesh out the characters. But the one thing I tell everyone to do if you want it to be great, bleed on the paper. Really let your blood come out on the paper. You have to give something of you to make the story really sing. And that's an emotional investment that the writers that I love do with every single novel.
What was kind of your who was your favorite murder mystery author growing up?
Wow. Hmm. Well, it's either going to be pure murder mystery, probably either Lawrence Sanders or Harlan Coben, just because totally different generations of writers. Harlan is my generation. And there's actually, I have a friend who went to high school with him who told me a very interesting story. And this made me like him even more. Apparently, the friend went back for a reunion, 30th reunion or 35th reunion, and Harlan was there. And she said to Harlan, we were good friends. How come I never see my name in any of your books, but I see the names of other friends from high school? And he said, I have a foundation and people make donations. And if you make a donation to my foundation, 98% of the money goes to literacy and reading and children's causes, all of his favorite causes, all of which are great. You get a spot in the book. For $250, you can be a dead body. And for $500, you can be a hooker. And that just made me laugh because I give people spots in the book just because they say, I want to be in your book. What can I be? Well, what do you want to be? And then I'll try and take their name and use it in a character.
Are there any authors that you keep up to date about that you are still excited to read their novels from?
Well, I just got a friend of mine in New York just sent me the latest novel by Doug Preston, who was part of Preston and Childs. Childs passed away, but Doug Preston is now writing novels with his daughter Alethea, and very excited about his new book. It's called wait, Paradox. I apologize because sitting right here on my counter waiting to be started. Um, Anything by Daniel Silva. I loved his Gabriel Alon, his protagonist, and the other one is Greg Isles. Same thing. When their books come out, I jump at the opportunity. I'm already caught up on Harlan Coben. And the other one who I didn't mention because it's not necessarily murder, but is Nelson DeMille. Love his work as well.
Is writing when it comes to writing murder mysteries and coming doing that, do you have any difficulty trying to craft stories and kind of craft plot details, or do you find it very easy to do?
It depends on the day and it depends on the plot, the twist in the plot. The second book, the one that's almost done, Death Discharged, I knew what I wanted it to be, but I've changed the context of the book 10 times. I'm now writing the book that I really like, but it's also meant that I've had to throw away maybe 15 chapters I had previously written because once I read them, I said, this isn't where I want to go. And it doesn't track the same way Death Insured did. I usually don't have that much difficulty except with the endings because I'm never sure how I want it to end. Does the murderer get caught? Does the murderer get away? If there's a love story in there, does the love story flourish or does it end? Um, and it's those little twists that are hard to decide because I'm trying to put myself into the head of the reader, not my own head. I know how I want it to end, but the question is, will the majority of readers want it to end that way? One of the most common questions I get about Death Insured is about the love affair between the two protagonists and what happens next. And I said, read the next book and you'll find out. Um, so it's part of that. But the fact that they're asking tells me that people have invested in the characters, and that's the thing I want most. I don't worry so much about the plot twists. The hardest thing is developing the characters so that they are relatable, whether you love them or hate them. You want people that the reader says, "Wow, that person is awful. If I saw them on the street, I'd cross and go to the other side." Or, "Oh my God, that's a guy I'd like to go and have a beer with," or a woman that I'd like to go out and have a glass of wine with.
In this world of publishing and how murder mysteries are perceived, how do you think that they're kind of underrated or overrated? Do you think people kind of overlook this kind of topic and genre?
I think the answer is probably undervalued because there are. I should will correct that. The really great ones are undervalued. There are lots of great independent writers who wrote one off or two off or three off books that aren't, the mainstream guys, and so they published on their own. I have a friend. His name is Pablo Zaragoza. He has published 30 books. His books are all over the map in terms of what he covers, but he's got a few murder mysteries in those 30 books. They're all really good, great detail. He was a former physician, so his medical aspects are out of this world, over the top good. And he's a guy who I think people should read, but most people don't know of him. I mean, he does newsletters, he promotes. He and his girlfriend, who's his editor, do a great job of keeping people informed of what's coming next. This morning, I got a notification his next book is coming out on the 14th. But I guarantee you that people will miss that because they'll be looking for the next whatever. So, undervalued the really good ones. The problem is with self publishing being so easy to do now, there are a lot of books that hit the marketplace, and people, there's only so many dollars to spend and so many people to spend them. So it makes, that people are discretionary with what they're going to do with their money. And if they have a friend who's written a book, they're more likely to buy his book or promote his book on their Instagram, Facebook, whatever, than to buy my book or promote my book.
Now, forward and going into the future, where would you like to see your writing career 10 years from now?
I'd love to. In 10 years, I would like to be getting ready to publish book number 10, 11, or 12. Um, I think that, one of my dream scenarios was when I wrote Death Insured, it was a bucket list item and nothing more. I wanted to do it because it was something I wanted to do. And if nobody bought the book, then nobody bought the book. Um, as I started to get feedback from people that didn't know me, who had read the book, who had heard about the book, who had borrowed the book, or who I had met in passing and bought the book, they said, "Oh my God, this is so good. When do I get the next one?" I realized that, and I have a friend who had a degree in literature from Harvard, and she read a draft of the book and she said to me, "I don't know why you've been doing what, I mean, you're good at what you do. I was very good at what I did, but I don't know why you've been doing this all these years. You should have been writing. This is really good. I mean, it's not good, it's great." And so when I wrote Death Insured, it played in my head each chapter like a scene in a movie. So I could see this becoming a movie. Getting it from where it is today to that, I don't know. Maybe that happens in a dream world. That would be the thing I'd want most of all. I'd love to see this come to the screen in some form, whether it's Netflix or Amazon or the big screen, whatever. And that's just about getting it in the right hands. And every day I do research and try and figure out how to do that. I just haven't come up with the best way yet. And yet being the key term.
What advice would you give to any young author out there that's wanting to go into writing murder mysteries, but they may not know how to go about it? What's your best advice of how they can become a very successful writer?
The first, well, there's a couple pieces of advice. Number one is journal your thoughts. The more you write, the more you will create. You'll come up with ideas. As you read what you wrote, think about great writers you've read. What would they do with the idea you have? The Lawrence Sanders and the Harlan Cobits, et cetera, of the world. Secondly, don't let don't be constrained by what you already know. Let your creativity flow. Think about the most absurd scheme and then try and narrow it back in so it's not so absurd anymore. I laugh because I always one of my favorite lines to say to people is, if you think an idea, because I've seen it a million times online, if you think an idea is crazy, just remember some guy walked into a meeting one day and said, "Let's make a movie about sharks and a tornado." And look at how much money Sharknado made. So there is no constraint on creativity, and there is no constraint on what the mind can conceive. As a matter of fact, I love to say, if you can conceive it, you can achieve it.
Well, AJ, thank you so, so much for taking time out of your schedule to come on to the podcast today to share your story and to share your books. For people that are interested in reading your books and would like to learn more about you, where can they go to learn more information?
Best place to go would be AJ Tyler Author. Be AJTYLERAUTHOR.com, which has links to the book and also a chapter I wrote in a nonfiction book about my grandfather's journey to America. Um, they can go to my Facebook page, AJ Tyler Author, my Instagram page, AJ Tyler underscore author. If you go onto Amazon, look up AJ Tyler and you'll find Death Insured. Don't look it up under Death Insured because there's 9,000 books with the word death in it, and it'll take you a few pages to find it. But if you look it up under AJ Tyler book, you'll find it right away.
And I will put all these links in the description box below his uh website links, everything will be down there. So feel free to go check that out. You're more than welcome to follow me on the podcast on the socials as well. Follow the podcast on Instagram and TikTok at southern.reads. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Noah's Podcasts. And feel free to also check out the website, noahspodcasts.com, to learn more about this show as well as the other shows that I do. There you'll find links to the socials and where the podcast is available. Make sure to also subscribe or follow the podcast so you get notified of when new episodes come out. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your day. Be safe, and I will see you all in the next episode of Southern Reads.
Thank you, Noah, for having me, and have a great day.